No, it's more that basically we take this idea at the end of this debate process, and that option is open. The EU will get something like a better deal, and I think there's a nice deal with that. Just reject. We think I didn't agree with that. I actually campaigned to remain, but referendums happened, and it's going to happen with Brexit. Well, Brexit. It's just it's about the type of Brexit we want to see happen.
Let's move on to that particular discussion. I'll come to you in a second, Ray. But right, what do you think is going to be the impact if we had a possibility of a referendum on staying within the EU? How do you think that's going to impact the negotiations with the European Union?
We have already had a referendum on staying in the EU. Now it is up to the government, who are experienced in this matter, to actually negotiate this for us. And it is foolish to go into a negotiation position to say that you are willing, whenever the deal is being done, that in the end it can just be scrapped. It is essentially saying we are entering into this room with the intent that it may actually be completely useless what we're doing. There is no power behind that. There is no influence. There is no ability there to actually get a good deal for Britain. And that's the problem. You cannot go into a negotiating stance willing to give up on every single point.
Okay, so you think that it's going to lead to a weaker negotiating position? Before we move on to the next question on this, right, what do you think? Do you think it's going to act? Well, I think I know what you think. Why do you think it's going to empower Theresa May or whoever the particular leader of his negotiations are in terms of their negotiating position? Dan, you've already chipped in on this.
For the simple reason that, look, I'm sorry, I believe that maybe the EU is full of half-decent people. Yeah, forgive me. Yeah, I'd like to think that if they're going to make an offer towards us, they'll make an offer that maybe appeases most of us. They'll know that they don't want to necessarily go down a route which people are unhappy with. They'll maneuver themselves and negotiate with the people. They won't negotiate, however, with a, what was it Ken Hart said, a bloody difficult woman, right? That's a lot tougher. That means we're not going to get as good a deal. So I honestly think that that will be a really good bargaining chip. Because if the EU is appealing to the people, maybe they'll do something that's good for the people rather than good for Theresa May. That's my thinking. But what about no deal?
But let's move on to the question on Theresa May. This right, is a question I'd like to ask you. The Conservative Party website claims that a vote for Theresa May is a vote to elect a strong negotiator who will be able to guarantee economic security in the Brexit negotiations. That's the claim being made on the website. However, unlike the Liberal Democrats and Labour, the Conservatives have not made any specific commitments on what their red lines or what their outcomes for the negotiations being acceptable are, and instead seem to be angling to be in a position where they can accept whatever Brexit deal Britain may be dealt without any particular political fallout by being silent on what they want. If she is clouded with the impression that she wants Brexit at any cost, and Europe can see that, is Theresa May really the best person to negotiate a deal?
It is foolish to go to negotiating and reveal what you're going to say and what you're willing to bargain and where your limits are before even entering into the room. I mean, nobody would ever do that. No, good negotiators don't do that. And good negotiators also are always willing to just walk out and say, enough is enough. I came to get a good deal. I came as a representative of the people, and I will not simply let them down in order to appease a small number of people. I mean, we look at the great Israeli, for example. He never took any stick from Europe, and I don't think our bloody difficult women will do so either. That is the brilliance of Theresa May. She understands that you cannot give away your cards before you have even begun to play the game.
So the essence of your point is, if she doesn't say where her limits are or lines are, she's in a better negotiating position than if she publicly comes out and says that a Brexit deal that doesn't give us these things would not be acceptable.
I do not think it's appropriate to give your opponent the battle plan before it's even begun.
Thank you. Danny?
I mean, I wonder, is she actually good at anything? Her time as Home Secretary, she tried to reduce immigration, she couldn't do it. She's been like the leader of the Conservative Party, and it's been awful. I think that I think part of my problem is that all of this, you are dealing with the economy of the whole country, and in this scenario, lots of individual people that will be massively affected by this decision. Like Labour takes a massive issue over, for instance, using EU nationals as bargaining chips in these debates, in these negotiations, which I think that should be a red line that she should, that she should actually take. That she should not basically use them as bargaining chips. Their lives mean more than that. Yeah, and I think it's perfectly fine to have some red lines that you can, just say this is the deal, this is the situation that we really, this shouldn't be. This should be a sort of a nice sort of amicable negotiation between partners. It's going to end in a divorce that hopefully won't wreck each other.
Were you really amicable?
They're more than happy to be.
Yeah,
read the letters between the EC and
they're not even
say publish the letters. Read the letters, the ones that enact the law, the international law.
I mean, your point is what? That we sit here and say, well, we're going to guarantee the national.
Yeah.
And then we just expect Europe to do the same after good effect.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they want to punish Britain for leaving the EU or making a mockery out of their institution. No, this is not going to happen. We cannot simply guarantee every single thing.
Well, this goes against your earlier, this very Tory line, which is that, of course, the EU will want to negotiate with us. We're the great United Kingdom. Of course, I agree with that Tory line, because they would happily negotiate with us, and we can have an amicable relationship. But that is a Tory line, I think you agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. This is the thing. You had this assertion that Theresa May is a good negotiator and that she understands. The evidence would seem to suggest the contrary. She keeps coming out with meaningless platitudes like Brexit means Brexit. That mean absolutely nothing. She's not really engaged with the issues that are at hand. She has, Claire to Danny, said that, EU citizens are bargaining chips. And she said that no deal is actually palatable. It should, I know this is some sort of, there's this idea amongst the Tories that this is some sort of grand negotiating game, like some sort of piece of historical fiction. But at the end of the day, these are people's lives are talking.
Wait, Brexit is not what does it mean for the
What does that mean?
The accusation of I guess the way that came up is she really the best person to negotiate for us if this is what she said on the issue? The question from the audience here is, the question that needs to be answered is not whether people reveal their cards or not, but rather a question of whether the individual sent to conduct negotiations is good for the UK. So ultimately, the hard-nosed nature of whoever goes in is irrelevant. Please explain why Theresa May, or whoever the leader that you guys think would be best to negotiate, will actually be able to get a good deal with reference to their behavior and relations to other parties and to negotiation. Is it not fair to claim that Theresa May has been particularly hard-nosed with the European Union and quite antagonistic in her approach, at least so far? And if so, is that really the best strategy for these negotiations?
In her previous negotiations, she has actually been quite successful. And I think we can go on that.
But sorry. But to what extent does that matter if on this issue of Brexit negotiations, she's gone in and said, I'm not going to make an action.
To what extent
she's gone in and said, so far and said, EU citizens are not going to be, we're not going to guarantee their rights as a gesture of goodwill. She said that she's not going to give any sort of indication as to where her red lines are. Do you not think she's gone into this in a particularly aggressive way? And is that really a good strategy for this negotiation?
No, I think she's made it quite clear. And she's only made actually one point, and that is we will not go into the negotiations. Anything between the terms. Yeah, I know, but that's the only point she's made. She has not said that, I'm going to do this or that. She has not made particular points that she will do. Because that's not.
So you don't know what she's going to do? You don't know what she's going to do?
No, she's going to get the best deal.
So we've established that
essentially the same.
It's also setting up a board of advisors in order to ensure that new ports are created to increase trade.
Right. So this is now a shopping list of things that we like. I get to the conclusion that we don't know if Theresa May is actually going to be good at doing that. But let's turn the focus to the other one, right? Is Jeremy Corbyn. What actions has he shown, or what evidence has he displayed of his competence to be good at these sorts of negotiations? And it's not a fair assertion for the Conservatives to make that Theresa May, having at least done some of these negotiations in the past, is it a better place to do it?
One, I think it's unlikely that Corbyn himself will be doing the negotiating. You'd expect to have that negotiating team anyway. I think that the priorities.
I'm pretty sure the leader will be involved to some extent. We're talking to other country leaders, given that it's standard diplomatic protocol.
If we win, we've got a large program to enact. So I'm sure we'll be quite busy.
How many other things?
But let him carry on. We'll let that continue.
Well, I think the important thing is about the priorities of Brexit and the two parties that will end up delivering it. In terms of the Tories, what you can expect is tax cuts and basically raise the bomb to end up like a foreign state like Singapore. Under Labour, the priorities can be very like obvious. We're going to be working on keeping existing workers' rights, environmental protections, and making sure that Parliament has some sort of room to roll all through the period. Yes, I think personally that is the better position, the better sort of situation to be in than just leaving it to you guys.
Okay, right.
So I'll handle over first then, Jordan. On the Tories, you've mentioned firstly that they'll have workers' rights protected. If you leave the single market, which by the way is your policy, then that's going to be a huge cost, maybe financial, or maybe the cost of trade agreements, and the cost, frankly, maybe imports, tariffs will go up, which is going to hurt people's back pocket. Also, Jeremy Corbyn can't control his own parliamentary Labour Party. What does that mean for when he's going to go to the EC, when he's going to speak to Michel Barnier and his team of expert negotiators? Now, with regard to the Tories, I don't know if you guys can throw your memory back a few months, so it wasn't that long ago now. I believe Jean-Claude Juncker, our favourite, came in and spoke with Miss May. And Miss May was very clear. She said, we're going to have secret negotiations, because if you're doing Apple, then it's a good idea to do things in secret. And she said it was going to be secret, and then what happened? Anyone remember? Hands up, guys. Anyone remember what happened? Got leaked, exactly. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing. You use the example of Theresa May having negotiated with the EU before, and exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about the Home Affairs part of the Lisbon Treaty in 2007. Now, that particular part of the treaty, is a really interesting bit, because it was gonna happen anyway. The concessions made were pretty minimal, so it wasn't that much of a diplomatic masterclass. And I'm not. Are you talking about the 2007 treaty or something later on? It would have been nice to see something. It would have been you'd have been building up on the 2007 treaty, because she was only a secretary for 2010. Anyway, so they both show they're pretty damn incompetent. Okay, and let's be clear, they're going for populist rhetoric here. Okay, they're going for immigration is terrible. Free trade is terrible. Curious what's going on. Okay. All these things are terrible. Why don't you take a step back for a moment and look at what actually is going to benefit people's back pockets, what's going to benefit the economy at large. Maybe not say really irresponsible things like we're going to have a no-deal Brexit, because that's going to mean pretty much everything will implode. I know Sarah's not going to give me the time to listen to anything.
No,
you won't.
But yeah, a lot of things are going to implode. Why don't we take a step back and do what's right for the country, as opposed to what's popular.
We voted for it. We voted for it.
We didn't vote for the terms. We didn't vote for exactly what kind of Brexit we're going to have.
Turning to, so we're taking a look at, then we've got as far as we're going to get on that particular topic. But let's return to Labour's particular position on Brexit negotiations. I think we've done with the Lib Dems and what they want from the Tories. But Labour have set out 6 criteria that they believe are the kinds of criteria on which they're going to accept a Brexit deal. And I've got them in front of me right here. You can see it as well, Danny. Does it deliver the exact same benefits as the UK currently has as a member of the single union? Does it ensure a strong and collaborative future relationship with the EU? And so forth. These are general platitude questions that seem to ask the world of these negotiations. But at the same time, Labour is committed to leaving the common market and not placing any pressure on the EU to give a deal that's good enough that the people still want to leave afterwards the way the Liberal Democrats. Does it not seem as if the Brexit position that Keir Starmer, MP for this particular area and Labour's shadow Brexit minister, is confused?
Yeah, possibly. The thing is, yeah. So we're in a different position because most of Labour campaigned to remain, but we've got this situation where the population has voted to leave, and so we've got to try and tally that together. We're not keen, obviously, doing that position. We think that everyone, I'm assuming most of you have voted. I'm guessing probably most of you would remain. But the reality of the situation is that the country voted by large to leave, and we have to just make sure that we have to abide by that because they did go into it thinking this was a binding sort of decision that they were, and the main issue of the referendum was leave because of immigration. People had immigration. I personally think that immigration is a positive thing, but personally, I think that controlled immigration is a good thing.
That's actually a good segue to, I think, the next topic, Eric, that we should probably move on to discuss, having been on this for 20 minutes now. Immigration, another hot button issue in this particular election. The Liberal Democrats, right, are the only party, member of the parties standing here, who have not pledged to aim to reduce immigration levels in the UK and remain committed to pushing for free movement with the EU even after Brexit. Whilst being open and tolerant like this sounds great and provides a nice soundbite, the reality is that many people in the UK feel that their jobs and communities are under threat as a result of current immigration. By not at least acknowledging these concerns and changing policy accordingly, are the Liberal Democrats not abandoning many predominantly poor and vulnerable members of our society?
Well, I'll answer that in two parts. I'll say our policy on this immigration in general, and then obviously how we're going to help out the poor and more vulnerable members of society. So look, Lib Dems are proud to stand up for immigrants from the EU or elsewhere. We always have done, and we simply won't back down from that. But we understand the need to manage the process, both at the border and in the towns and villages where immigration affects ordinary people's everyday lives. We'll make sure it's fair and efficient. We'll enforce strict control of the borders. We already have
right.
Borders.
So you haven't committed to reducing immigration.
Correct. Yeah. Free movement as far as we can have it within whatever deal it is that we get. Sure. Look, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. The Dems like immigration. I don't know about you guys. Do you like immigration or not? I have a lot of excellent friends of mine who are EU citizens or citizens from elsewhere, and I hate them to go, frankly. And I think I'll offer a heck of a lot to our economy. So, and I'll just cut to how we help out for we'll bring back the centrally funded Migration Impact Fund, which will help local communities affected by immigration and unexpected pressure on public services and housing, and will also provide additional funding for English as an additional language classes to help migrants and residents gain independence as they settle in our nation. But sorry, if I may say, in your question, you missed a really important thing. Refugees? Am I allowed to talk about refugees?
You have.
Thank you very much. Look, it's common knowledge that our current regime treats refugees inhumanely and inefficiently. Oh, and by the way, the Lib Dems are fans of refugees, so if you're not. The Lib Dems are the only party that have openly pledged to take on more refugees and ensure a more humane and efficient process for their entry. I mean, all through the Labour manifesto, they mentioned refugees plenty of times, but no pledges were made at all. It was just coffee shop talk. We would offer safe and legal routes for refugees to make their way over, and so prevent many of the unnecessary deaths which have happened. We'd reform the family reunion rules so that refugees can more easily join their relatives already living in the UK, and we'd expand the Syrian vulnerable person resettlement scheme to 50,000 Syrian refugees over the course of the next 5 years. And refugees. 3,000. No, this is important, Sri. 3,500 new kids.
There are also other people who get involved. Cool. So, Liberal Democrat position on immigration. Come to the Conservatives on this. The Conservatives have pledged to reduce immigration to the tens of thousands, but this has been pledged twice before, both in the 2010 election and then again in the 2015 election. And currently, immigration remains at a level of about 273,000 net migration into the UK. Why should people trust the party on such promises, given that similar policies have been made in the past? And in any case, why is reducing immigration to the tens of thousands necessarily a priority for the British economy, given that it, at the moment, relies so heavily on migrant labour?
Firstly, we were reducing immigration because that is actually what the majority of the people in this country wish. We have to look at why did Brexit actually occur. One of the main reasons is immigration. It is a very important point, and once again, I think it's the Liberal Democrats holding democracy in contempt. Whilst so many people actually wish immigration to be reduced, they're not actually in any way addressing the problem. They're coming up with amazing, I like immigration, I like refugees, whatever. That's not an actual policy.
I gave you policy.
Yeah, that's not a viable argument in favour of immigration. And also, one of the reasons why, firstly, immigration is reduced is happening now. But one of the reasons that it hasn't been able to reduce much is because we have been in the EU and there have been freedom of movement. So that the majority of immigrants come from the EU. So that's one reason why. And secondly, non-EU members, then also come through Europe, and that's also part of the problem. So having open borders with Europe creates many difficulties in ensuring that our borders are controlled efficiently. And that is something which we can now do once we leave the EU. And and I think we will be able to see after we have that, a drastic reduction, or not a drastic reduction, a reduction which is appropriate to the economy. You cannot simply always continuously take more and more people into a country and assume that.
So will it be free movements of people through due to the EU is the main cause of this? You say drastic reduction is what the Conservatives are pledging to move us down from 273,000 to tens of thousands. But Danny, do you think that is a sufficient reason? The fact that we haven't been able to reduce migration.
It just won't happen. You've been saying it since 2010, and you've done nothing to actually. I don't want you to reduce immigration that much, to tens of thousands, but you just actually can't even fulfil your own pledge time and time again. Immigration is a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that controlled immigration is better than free movement. I think in a planned economy, when the government is expected to spend money for 10 or 20 years' time, knowing how many people roughly are going to be here is a good way of basically being able to judge how many classroom sizes you need or how many beds in hospitals you need. So I think controlled immigration, Labour's policy is controlled immigration, but we still think immigration is a good thing, and we are certainly not victimising refugees at all. And we're pushing refugees in the sea or anything like that.
But the response to the
there's like a middle position.
But it's right. But I mean, I would like that the Liberal Democrats can see the extreme Labour. But let's go back to the issue that Ryan raised, right? The idea that the majority of British people, or a large number of British people, have significant concerns that immigration is too high. And in your statement, you just said controlled immigration is a good thing. That seems to be, apart from the EU, the status quo policy. Why do you think immigration needs to come down? And if you don't think it needs to come down, how do we convince people in the country, and this is also something I should ask you, right, that immigration is a good thing, and change that narrative that the majority of people seem to believe? Somebody else.
So I don't think immigration should come down that much at all. I think there should be definitely, absolutely, disentanglement between immigration from, say, students coming here to study with workers, because the students, particularly that come to university, are overwhelmingly good for the economy. What's the question?
How do we change the narrative?
I mean, the big problem is this sort of rhetoric of blaming the migrant that comes in, is blaming the other person. And it happens all across across history. And it's when everything's get a little bit tough. Some party, normally yours, can sort of point the finger at the other person, normally sort of the brown person, something like that. And it's just wrong. Why people are not happy and are sort of pointing the finger at migrants is because they're seeing things like their the local environment changing and not being protected. Things like, for instance, seeing large corporations taking over, like local pubs, things like that, and they have no control over their own sort of local community. They're seeing wages stagnant because of policies that the Tories first enacted, and we need to address that. This whole sort of argument that migrants going to senior jobs, that's not the problem. It's poor economic policy pushed on by neoliberalism that needs to change, and Labour would be the ones to make that better.
I'm going to go to Rye for a response to that. Those recommendations and comes right to finish.
Well, I mean, you still haven't addressed the major problem that most people in this country, the majority of people in this country, they're not against immigration. They just understand that it can cause problems in our economy and in terms of jobs.
Which problems?
In terms of people coming from Europe and taking many of the low-paid jobs, which
I mean, this legislation has very little effect.
well, the government is making a big deal in the debate.
I mean, I don't get to speak for Jeremy Corbyn, so you know.
But he is, you know.
But I would like to challenge you on something you said earlier. Perhaps it's true that the ability for free movement within the European Union makes it difficult to reduce the overall migration numbers that the UK faces. But surely at least some improvement could have been made by the Conservatives on immigration from outside the European Union. Statistics show that the change there has been negligible as well. Why do you think that is, and what's going to be different this time for people who do think that immigration is a concern, for them to trust that the Tory party will be able to deliver on that promise at least this time?
Well, it has actually reduced it in the past year.
Very, very insignificantly.
Well, actually,
Like considering that the promise was to reduce from hundreds of thousands of people to tens of thousands of people, it seems to have been a.
of course, we are still not getting the architect.
Do you think managed to do it in 2016?
And terrible policies, which of course these immigration issues. But of course, again, it is extremely difficult to regulate immigration when we have open borders with your nearest neighbours. And it's simply, I dread to turn around.
Let's give Brian a chance to respond.
Yeah, so no, we have to admit that control of immigration is extremely difficult to carry out. And now that that's being affected and being stopped, we can actually move ahead and begin to curb it.
Right. Is control of immigration moving forward?
Okay, answering a couple of parts. First thing first, you talk about having controlled immigration. There are ways of doing it in a soft way. Throwback to what had been a year ago now. There was just before the referendum, David Cameron came out with a deal, and it's terrible, blah 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 blah. In it, it said that we will perhaps constrain benefits for a certain amount of time. So, go over to Belgium, and if you are an immigrant, EU immigrant, you get certain rights constrained because you're allowed to do that within the EU purview. So, little soft incentives, or rather hard incentives, for people to come over to our country can be changed if you want them to. That's just us. We can do that. We don't have to bother with the EU because the EU gives us that purview. Now, going back to what we're about immigrants, as I say, I'm a fan. We believe they are integral to so many of our countries' industry. Both Turi and I are law students. We both know that the new dean of the UCL law faculty is Dutch, if I'm right. PX Echoes, something like that. He's Dutch. Throughout, you just look at the statistics for nurses. They're from all over the EU and other places. You look at the statistics for practically every industry, anything from lawyers to strawberry pickers. Immigrants are there. And what are they doing? They're giving labor that's cheap, productive, and they also provide us with, frankly, cheaper goods. That's a cynical view. We also love immigrants because we're friends with them, because they add so much to our country's culture. They might make this country a better place. And we don't talk about that much, but they really do. So, yeah, we're a huge fan of immigrants. We believe they add a heck of a lot of economic benefit, and they also add a lot to this nation's economy.
But why does, I guess the question is why continue having free movement with the European Union, and why not change or tighten up our policies for migration from other countries so we get the most skilled labor of the labor that we really need, but perhaps reduce the overall numbers?
But I think we can do with labor full stop, not that labor. We can do it with lowercase now. We can do lowercase labor full stop because it's good labor. What we can do to stop perhaps immigrants who we don't like is have harder disincentives for, I don't know, in terms of claiming welfare and so on. That's okay. That's within our purview. Not necessarily sure.
Is that what your part of the policy is?
No. So
no restrictions on
Well, we're being agnostic. We're agnostic on that. We're agnostic on that.
All right.
Look at tuition fees in 1997, 2001, 2001.
We'll get to tuition fees and trust. Don't worry, this is going to be fun.
Regardless, yeah, we think labour is a good thing. Labour is a good thing, and you do want to.
Normally, all the people in Britain who actually are being affected by increasing.
They're not being
And
affected
all
by
the people who actually want the policy to be changed. You're ignoring all the democracy, you're sitting there pontificating, telling us all that we must have democracy.
This is crazy. Right, here's a crazy thing. Funny thing about democracy is you have different points of view. No one party has a monopoly on the truth. I'll admit, we're not going to be right on everything. You're not going to be right on everything. Labour's not going to be right on everything. Yeah, fact is that. So we're going to advocate a particular point of view. If you like it, vote for us. If you don't, vote for him. Sorry. Simple as that.
I think that's a good place to end this particular discussion. I think the next area that would be a useful area to move into, especially given what's happened tragically recently in Manchester, is security. And before we move on to for example, international defence and that aspect of security, let's start with local policing. The Conservatives have expressed their intention to cut police numbers in this country, which has been sharply criticised by opponents, especially in renewed opposition since the recent attack. Despite overall drops in crime levels in recent years, is this a prudent policy for the Conservatives to pursue?
The decrease in numbers of police officers is not actually a decrease in the funding of our security. There are many different ways of tackling with, say, terrorism, such as with the awful events that happened in Manchester. But it's not just about bodies on the beach. It's also about cyber security. It's about armed police and the role of military forces and intelligence. So the budget for security is going to increase in real terms, but not necessarily on police officers. They don't necessarily help all the time. And I think Labour more wants to be a police state where everyone is monitored constantly. With, what police officers?
Just a second. But so it is your intention that a better equipped, perhaps militarily armed, and therefore better funded police officers with fewer police officers is a more effective way of policing streets than our current policy of having.
It's just a fact to say that the more police officers equal more security. It's always the Labour policy.
Is it not similar to say fewer police officers equals better spending
more money equals a solution? More police officers equals a solution. No, that's not the case. It's not a simple matter of increasing police. We have to look at every single area, and there is not an infinite amount of money. If there is a finite amount of money, you have to just
Sure. So the argument, therefore, just understanding correctly, is that the prioritization should be on equipping the police officers that we have rather than trying to have
not just equipping police officers, but also investing the money in other areas which are developing, such as cybersecurity, such as other forms of intelligence, which will enable us to stop terrorism.
Sure. Right.
Very quickly on cybersecurity, look what happened to the NHS because of the cuts to investments in that particular aspect of things. But just going back to the point here, in terms of police numbers, overall, the Dems work with evidence, okay? Overall, crime has fallen, except for violent crime, which has risen. So the Lib Dems have a pretty iron focus on that. So we're going to increase community policing in England and Wales, and obviously the North governments have their own sort of thing going on. I'm giving an additional £300 million a year to local police forces to reverse that increase in violent crime and boost community confidence and community intelligence. And I think that's pretty much our answer to these issues.
Sure. Danny.
Security. I've got the slide as well. Labour said we're going to recruit an extra 10,000 police officers. We didn't agree with it when you cut the first 20,000. I think people don't feel safe. Even if I think this is the problem, is that even if crime is going down, people don't seem to feel safe. And we have to address that. I don't think the answer is to necessarily spend the direct money to spy and tactics, basically. That the tourism particularly made in ban on. People don't like this, so their privacy being invaded. I don't think that's a good option.
Should we unpick that a bit further? I think that what's recently been passed by Parliament is the Diversity Powers Act that empowers police units and other security forces in this country to be able to hack people's computers, to be able to trace what people do and to track their movements online, and actually mandates that internet service providers hold on record for a year every single all your internet connection records for an entire 12 months. This is something that has been happening for the last, I don't want to give an exact number of years, but well over a decade. But we didn't know about it until the Snowden revelations, and this is the first piece of legislation that's come through afterwards, which hasn't curbed that power in any way. Do you not think it is good for there to be more, like, do you think it's a good policy for us to have that level of power in the hands of our security forces, as opposed to the more traditional forms of policing that would otherwise exist? And should that exist with the lack of authorization currently advocated?
We have to acknowledge that such crime is now becoming more and more to do with the internet and is online, and the government cannot hold back. It cannot be on the back foot on these matters. We have to progress to meet the current situation, and therefore, I mean, accessing our personal data, it's still under the protection of the law. There has to be a warrant. There has to be a permission in order to do it. Just as there has to be permission to search somebody's home. We all have property, but it cannot be taken away from us without a judge giving permission or a JP. So it's the exact same thing. We have intellectual property or online property, and that will be accessed only when it is needed. And these safeguards will ensure that our rights, our liberties are not attacked, but at the same time that our security is not compromised by allowing everyone to, or by constricting the ability of the government to actually look into matters and investigate.
Right.
Well, if we look at the Investigatory Powers Act in the past, we do see a sort of formalization of a lot of bulk surveillance powers, which have been there previously. There's more of it, and it's more formal, and said in a slightly different way. We obviously, the Dems, we are a party of civil liberties, we're against that. And that is to say, we're against the indiscriminate bulk collection of data. What we are in favor of is permits to go ahead and make these data collections when you've got people suspected of serious crimes or terrorism, only when you have a degree of judicial oversight beforehand. This follows on roughly from the proposals made by David Anderson, QC, who was an independent terror legislation reviewer, recently left. So yeah, we'll allow for that. We also want to do a crazy little thing, and that is contribute to the security efforts across Europe. A lot of this international terror, I'm sure I will agree, happens across the continent, and we don't want a situation like a no-deal Brexit, because what that would mean is that our security efforts would be stuck, facing a massive national security threat. It's as simple as that. So that's basically what we want to do. We will, to put it concisely, roll back those state surveillance powers. We will oppose the Conservative attempts to undermine encryption, and we will allow for permits to do this sort of thing, so long as there's judicial oversight before.
Let's move on to dealing with the issue of terrorism. I think there are conflicting opinions on how that should be dealt with. We've got comments coming from senior figures in the Labour Party suggesting that the primary cause of terror may be related to our foreign intervention and our engagement in the Middle East. Got conflicting opinions coming from Conservatives, largely saying that this is about integrated communities or the way that certain communities aren't self-policing themselves. So what do you think needs to be done? I'm going to start with you, Danny, on this particular issue. What do you think we should do more to try and help deal with or catch terrorists earlier? Is it to continue programs like Prevent, or is it that we need a new approach to that particular issue?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of criticism around Prevent, and it's
Never mind, we'll come back in just a second. Ryan, do you want to take lead?
We have to, there are many influences towards radicalization of terrorism, and it has to, we have to look at all areas. And of course, policing ourselves, being able, for example, for parents to monitor their children to ensure that they're not being radicalized, that's very important. Also, there are problems abroad. People going abroad in order to become trained or radicalized and then come back. We cannot ignore that problem. Labour would have us say, oh no, we shouldn't intervene outside, which is just, the problem is I don't know, with the toys or whatever. But in reality, there's more than one factor here, and you have to address each one before any sort of reduction or interrogation can be achieved.
Right, Danny, do you want to step or do you agree with what Brian just said, or would you like to jump in and suggest an alternative?
Well, let me put it this way. First things first, then Brexit. Things like the European arrest warrant are pretty important. Something that would not be there in no deal Brexit. All that means is that someone who goes down to the Costa del Sol isn't completely free of English law. They are taken away and put into an English prison. Back in the old days, your parents will remember the Costa del crime. That's no longer a thing. In terms of terrorism specifically, we've got the Prevent scheme, which I think a lot of you will have heard of, designed to get minorities who may well be at risk of becoming terrorists. Well, I can speak as one of those particular minorities who might be terrorists, and as a guy who's been interviewed or interrogated, whatever word you want to use, by a particular, not this country, another country's authorities. I'm not a good Muslim, as you can tell. I should have been fasting. But yeah, I understand roughly the sort of demographic they're aiming at. And I think the Lib Dems approach fits perfectly. The current approach is pretty centrally managed. It's the government looking down on you and saying, are you a potential terrorist? Are you a potential terrorist? And speaking to people who are supposed to be community leaders and getting them to somehow contribute in some distant way. The best approach is a community approach. The best approach is a more devolved approach. It's going into those communities and asking, instead of having some sort of policeman come and interrogate you, it's getting at a local level, people asking, hey, are you a terrorist or are you not? Let's look at the Manchester attacks very quickly, very good, yeah? Manchester attacks. We already saw a community approach there working. We saw people reporting that Salman Abedi for his crimes. Now, the problem after that was that we didn't manage to actually get ahead and catch him in the act beforehand, which is horribly unfortunate. But the prevention scheme works there, right, because it got to the community level.
So more community-based approach. The last question on this particular topic, then, and it comes from Ben Carver. You hear, Ben? Hey, it's an excellent question. A strong majority, which the Conservatives are expecting to get, would allow them to pass pretty much anything and pass policies that are controversial, such as the Investor Powers Act. The erosion of civil liberties is always a risk with large majorities. Look at Blair and definite detention. Why should anyone vote for a Conservative candidate if they will put their civil liberties at risk, especially given Theresa May's own personal record, given her position as Home Secretary before with deportations and her support for things like the Investor Powers Act, show that people should perhaps be concerned that this is a fairly authoritarian leader who puts civil liberties on a back foot.
Firstly, a strong majority will enable a good negotiating position and a unified parliament, or at least government, when we enter into Brexit, and that's very important. That's the primary reason. But also, actually, majorities are very good. Britain hates coalitions. That's always been the case. Britain has always thrived best under strong governments, and that is what will happen if the Conservatives are able to win their majority, a large majority, and that will enable a stronger Britain, a stronger economy, to actually implement the policies which will benefit every single one of them. It's not about reducing your civil liberties. It's about ensuring a government that will actually carry out the policies that are needed in this country, and which will ultimately lead to a better United Kingdom.
Okay, thanks, guys. So one more area we're going to discuss, which is general taxation and investment. linking into that meme that we just got posted up there. Before we go to the floor debates, if you guys want to like prepare a speech for that afterwards, please start thinking of one now. But Danny, Labour's plans are incredibly ambitious. They include renationalising the energy industry, renationalising the railways, renationalising Royal Mail, on top of significant increases in expenditure for areas such as housing, the NHS, and education. Not least because you guys want to scrap tuition fees and they want to create a national education service. However, you've also pledged to not raise income taxes on anyone earning less than £80,000, which people estimate would cover between 90 to 95% of the population. How feasible are these promises? Are you not able to? Are you able to not raise taxes on the vast majority of the population and massively increase spending in the way that you manifested promises?
It's very possible.
People seem to think otherwise.
Part of the way that we're planning on funding some of these tax increases is with corporation tax. So we'll be planning on raising the corporation tax from what currently is to 12% in 2017-18, then up to like 24% in 2019-20, and then 26. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have a higher corporation tax.
On just that corporation tax, obviously, if it increases, is another reason why businesses may not want to set up in this country. Brexit is also a reason why people might not want to set up business in this country when they would have done before. So there are estimated losses of revenue as a result of increasing corporation tax, which might be one reason why you wouldn't be able to offset it in that way. Is that really, do you think, going to be sufficient?
No, I don't think so. I'm a bit more taken for it.
But I guess the question is why? Why would people set up businesses here if corporation taxes are that high and there is Brexit happening as well, which again makes it even less attractive as a place to invest?
I don't think that what we should be aiming from Brexit is because we're going to be going through a breakup with the EU, that we have to then necessarily race to the bottom in terms of corporation tax. I think many of our countries, much weaker in terms of, compared to us, have higher corporation taxes and they manage just fine. I don't think there's any really good reason why we would be any different. I think it's a scaremongering basically from people like Tories who it probably it suits their vested interests to have lower corporation taxes. I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Is it a problem?
I mean, the attack that the Tories are rich and all they want is money and I mean, I'm sorry,
Dividing quite a stereotype.
I think it's where I go in. There's no actual merit in the argument. And no. And I would say, firstly, that no serious economist has any faith in the Labour manifesto. The numbers don't add up. The Institute for Fiscal Studies,
Where are your interests?
the point is cannot say such ludicrous figures and expect them to come to fruition.
Just say nothing at all then.
No, we have actually we played what we will be doing.
We set out a plan, fully costed plan.
Fully
Nothing.
costed plan.
I take objection to that. I think this is one thing that neither of these two parties. They haven't taken official numbers for some of them. So you're taking Labour's numbers, but Conservatives haven't costed any of them.
Okay, fine. I will pass by the fact that the costing for Labour are completely useless. But I will say, firstly, that the idea of increasing corporation tax, companies that are affected by this will actually it will actually affect normal people the most, the poorest the most, because you haven't taken into consideration that by increasing taxes for these large companies, in order to offset that, they will be reducing their wages. This has happened historically in all economies in which this has occurred. If you increase corporation tax, companies try to make up their profits by reducing wages for their employees, which will affect the poorest in society. They will increase the price of their products, which will affect the man on the street and the woman on the street. It will inevitably lead to problems for the poorest in society. And it's once again the old-fashioned Labour policy, which has never worked, which is that they would rather the poor poorer, as long as the rich were less rich.
I think we moved into the field.
In terms of the costing, those Tories haven't done any costing ever. And with regards to Labour, they've come to dynamic school of maths. And also, she got that wrong about maths is not a strong point. Good thing she did history. Other historians aren't good mathematicians. Well, look, that argument's been had. We know the costings shambles on both sides. Our policy on corporation tax is to push it back up a little bit, up to 20%. So we're not going to the full 26% that Labour have gone for, and we're not going to the 17% that the Conservatives are promising, which would be the lowest in the G7, because frankly, we don't need to. I think we're a pretty good country. We don't need to attract people with low tax as the sort of primary attractor. So the thing is, though, the Lib Dems are a little bit more imaginative than that, I'd like to think. We're here to reform the corporation tax system just a little bit. We're going to develop a system that benefits the smallest companies whilst ensuring the biggest multinationals cannot avoid paying sums comparable to nationally based competitors. And so what we'll do is we'll consult on shifting away from a profits-based tax to one that takes into account, in some fashion, a wider range of economic activity indicators, such as sales and turnover. I'm not going to lie, it's not simple, but it's something that's going to make life a little bit easier for small business owners and make sure big business owners can pay their fair share. Absolutely. I said we're not going to charge them on tax and turnover, on turnover and sales and so on. We're going to take it into account when we're making our calculations. Simple as that. But you know, if you're running a business, you've got to deal with it. You know? I mean, come on.
So lots of little tweaking, lots of little tweaking, and not very much done.
No, well, look, you can say it's not very much done, but at the end of the day, if you own a small business and you're being charged an unfortunate amount of tax, and you're owning a big business and you're being charged a tiny amount of tax, then frankly, these tweaks will make all the difference.
Our changes won't actually affect that. In terms of smaller businesses, we'll have different tax rates for small businesses anyway.
Standard stuff.
Sorry, I do need to take you up on that by saying that corporation tax is going to be applied to small businesses, small large. So that's not something that you differentiate on that basis. So what is Labour's response to the idea that corporation tax increases are going to affect those smaller businesses? But also the larger point that even if you have no decrease in the level of business, the economists have come out and said that, at least on the figures of the official costings, like the IFS come out and said, Labour's manifesto doesn't make financial sense. Labour's own figures said that they make financial sense. By Labour's standards, they've calculated that they've costed it. But no one else seems to agree with that particular calculation. And whenever they do propose policy, for example, I think it was either this morning or yesterday morning, Jeremy Corbyn was announcing a new policy. I didn't know the figures in the interviews. It doesn't seem like the leaders themselves seem to have a particular grasp on their own costings. These are all issues of trust that people have. Why should people be able to trust the Labour manifesto, will be able to carry out all of its pledges if it doesn't look like on the face of it they can make the numbers add up?
They've said that our numbers can add up. They've said that, they confirmed that our manifesto commitment will mean that we basically by I think by 21 we will have a budget surplus.
I mean, that's the I think that it is possible in some way if you don't have the reduction of that it could be a budget surplus. But there's a lot of ifs and buts to get there, and the vast majority of people seem to think that's unlikely.
You can disagree on that.
So how do you convey it? Why should people be able to trust Labour if Labour and seemingly them alone?
We've got plenty of economists that think that our plan is credible and will actually work.
Which?
Our plan is the top end there.
Because that's wrong.
All right, there are plenty.
Anyway, let me just be clear. Just a very quick point. Yeah, nationalisation is a really key part of Labour's manifesto. Yeah, it's all over. You think they cost it? They didn't. Okay. When you look at corporation tax or income tax increases, they costed it, but they didn't use the right figures. And the IFS is completely contradicting. I mean, look, it's a £50 billion spending program. It's pretty big. It's going to put us into a greater deficit. So you'd like to think that maybe Labour would be a bit more competent, but I guess I have to prove that.
Turning lastly on this issue, before we go to the floor debate, to the Conservatives, just the flip side of this corporation tax issue. If at the moment Britain is seen as a great hub for business already, why reduce corporation tax and reduce the revenue we get from corporation tax from the current 19% to 17%, which, given that we're already the lowest charges a corporation tax in the G7, is that not just taking away money that we could otherwise be using to help with investments that the Tories or Labour or all the parties have pledged to do?
The policy of reducing corporation tax must go hand in hand with the idea that we are going to clamp down on the evasion of tax. And you cannot expect businesses to be attracted to this country when you are both increasing corporation tax and then also ensuring that everyone's going to, that the company.
No, but why does corporation tax need to fall below the already low level, given that we're already the lowest charges of corporation tax in the G7?
Because most people, most companies, when they come to England, they attempt to evade the tax by facing their tax. But
avoid is evade is illegal.
yeah, sorry.
Please keep it civil and
As a Tory, I don't believe in the state taking my money on membership for no reason. But the point is that it is only right that companies should pay, but that they shouldn't be paying ludicrous amounts, which will inevitably penalise you and everyone else, those on the lowest rung of society. That's rule of thumb if you end up increasing corporate tax. So by lowering it, we're actually helping everyone.
okay, and the very last note, Brian, you said that corporation tax, we don't need to attract these, you don't need to attract big businesses. One second, no, I get to choose and get to say them, so. You've said that we don't need to attract people in the race. That's true. Why not increase corporation tax? And if it is important for us to keep taxation low, why increase it a little amount to 20%? Why try to be somewhere in between these two columns?
20% is standard that had been set for quite a while, just before the government decided to change their mind on the matter. It worked. Sometimes it did work, but look, we're imaginative here, okay? As I say, we're going to move away from having a necessarily profit-based tax to one that takes into account sales and turnover. Another thing, you guys obviously aren't going to be a physician, but your parents may well be. They may own a business that owns some sort of premises, shop, whatever. They pay business rates. That's calculated based on the valuation of this agency says is their annual multiple rent. Yeah, that's not the best way of figuring out your business rates, especially if you've got a digital business. So we're going to reform that system, consider the implementation of regular land value taxation, and in essence lessen the burden on small high street competitors. Okay, yeah. All right. So change the system. Why have this debate about 26 versus 17? Right? Yeah? 20% is a decent middle.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think you guys have listened to these guys for quite a while now. Would anyone like, having heard them, to give a up to 3-minute speech on any of the issues that you've heard so far, or any of the issues you'd like to hear coming up? Yeah, down here at the front. Would you like to come down to the front? If anyone would like to get more wine or more Coke, please come down and get that now. Note that you can do that at any time, but try to do it in between speeches. Yeah. Yeah, there.
Wait, where are the cups? Oh, you've got. Right, I'm going to lay out some cups.
Sorry.
All right, everyone, please sit down. I didn't mean that. Right. All right, everyone, please take seats. We can settle down. The liquid democrat. All right, guys, please do feel free. We're going to replenish the wine and the coke down here. Feel free to come down and get some, but please try to come in between speakers so you don't interrupt the speech. That's courteous. Around another round of applause for Pooja, our first speaker.
I speak to you guys from a non-partisan. I do not represent I don't represent the debt. I just wanted to pick up on the point of I don't want the state taking my hard-earned money. A quote from Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations really strikes me, comes to mind. For every one rich man, there are 500 poor men, and he sleeps at night, he's surrounded by jealousy. Only the strong hand of the civil magistrate keeping his fortune safe. You need, markets don't exist. Markets are made, it's a very violent process. In order to protect your wealth, you've got to give something back. Otherwise, the pitchforks will come at you. That's that. So, the prospects on all three manifestos are bleak. The IFS has said no matter who you vote for, the poorer bottom half society will be at least 10% worse off than we currently are. So, what have we had from the Tories in the last 7 years? Austerity. Austerity simply doesn't work. Find me a single economist that says it works. Find me a single example where austerity has worked. I challenge any conservative out there the last. Sorry? Well, it's clearly not a very good one because I've not heard of him. And, I refer to Mark Price, I refer to. For disastrous policy, I refer to the UK and US example. The UK cut back because of ideological reasons. The US spent their way out. As a result, debt to GDP ratio in the US has gone down to 3%, increased to 7% in the UK. Another example that simply does not work. We sold this idea from the Conservatives that reckless spending got us into this mess. It was in fact the financial crisis. Now, I'm not going to pinpoint the blame on anyone for the financial crisis, just saying we were lied to as a country. So what are the prospects under a Conservative manifesto? More austerity, which we know simply doesn't work. Now, turning my attention to the Labour manifesto, I fully agree that it's not costed. The IFS have said there's £30 billion black hole in it. Sorry, couldn't help myself. There's £30 billion black hole. The policy of taxing excessive pay and the policy of taxing offshore assets will, according to the IFS, yield zero. So what are the prospects under a Labour manifesto? More debt, higher bond yields, potential for more QE. I'm not going to waste my breath discussing the Lib Dem manifesto because ever get into power. So what do I want? What I want everyone to take from this is that this is very much a one-issue election. That is Brexit. Brexit has been a smoke and mirrors process. Brexit, the movie, like the little propaganda piece from Vote Leave, had no mention of leaving the EEA, no mention of immigration. What were people voting for? No one knows. So this election is very much an opportunity to get bureaucrats to listen to your stances on Brexit. You've got the Lib Dems that are as Europhilic as it gets. If you're Remain, and probably vote for them. You've got Labour remaining the EEA, and the Tories totally leave the EEA. So I think it's very much a one-issue election. Economic prospects are very bleak, regardless of who gets in. So I urge everyone to use this opportunity to have their views on Brexit heard, because the binary choice we were offered in June 13 or 24 last season, last year, was not reflective of the people. So I think this is very much a one-issue election.
I'm going to start throwing things in.
One issue election, and I vote for you to urge on that one issue.
Thank you very much. So, that was our first video. Thank you very much. So at the end of this sort of round of stuff, we'll come to our panelists who will have 2 minutes to respond to each of. Would anyone else like to give a speech from the floor? Hand up there. Would you like to come down?
Okay, I want to quickly talk on immigration. There's been a lot of talk about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, whether, to be very cynical or not. Immigration is not a good thing or bad thing, it is an economic necessity. All right, we do not produce enough doctors, we do not produce enough nurses. NHS, the agriculture industry, are all incredibly dependent on immigration. All right, so to say whether it's good, to say whether it's bad, we need 25,000 engineers a year, we do not produce them. Well, more than we produce. We do not produce enough doctors a year, so we bring them by immigration. You could say that is because our education system isn't good enough. The truth is it costs close to £100,000 to train either, and we just take them from somewhere else. So whether you like them or not, we need them. Comment on the whole issue. People feel they're being infringed on in immigration. The areas which voted Brexit and did it on a position of immigration had the least immigrants, and the areas with the most immigrants voted to remain. So, quick comment on immigration. I'd also like quickly to talk on the Asian population. We continuously are talking about all the different policies, but we should all recognise as the student generation that we're coming on quite badly regardless of what happens. As it stands with the tuition fees being increased, the government has saved around £6 billion a year. With the triple off, which is brought in for pensioners, the cost of pensions per year has gone up to around £30 billion. I think we need to recognise as a generation going forward that the money in general is being transferred away from us, and that the money is being transferred away from us and is being transferred to the older generations, and it will take so regardless of which way we go, we're going to have to start voting and start acting as actual people, otherwise we won't be taken seriously. You can see how Theresa May reacted when it turned out that one of her anti-pension policies, with her anti-pension policy, the one regarding the cap on, what was it called, the other tax on dementia tax, how quickly she turned on that. Okay, she didn't do that out of her moral concern, she did it out of her electoral concern. Our generation is not being given that concern whatsoever. So it's key that we start voting and that we start being recognised as such, otherwise we will feel later when we are dealing with stronger, financial constraints.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the
Do you mind being how much?
Okay, so honestly, I don't know very much about UK politics being a foreigner here. But I do have some questions I want to direct specifically at each of the members on the panel. So, first of all, my question to you is quite boring because honestly, the example. Which of the other two parties is the right? And why is it the Next question to the Labour representative. The Conservatives say that you need a united front. Conservatives say you need a united front during Brexit negotiations to not be pushed around by EU members. You say that you both like the Conservatives' policy. Notice, first of all, that that's not a response. And secondly, given that Corbyn is increasingly a divisive figure, it's not clear if Labour or United. My question is as follows. Say you live in the hypothetical universe where after the elections, Conservatives are leading the given that you dislike their policies, but given also that the EU will try to screw over the UK, Would you prefer the conservatives to have a strong bargaining position or a weak bargaining position? My last question to the conservative representative. So I'm a poor student. I spend about £6 on food a day. That means that this year so far, I spent about £500 on food in total. My first question to you is, did your outfit and pen cost?
Let's go. Yeah.
Sorry, my last question. Did you dress so fancy to inspire us to work
Anyone else for four speeches? Before we go to the next section. Yep. Only have time for two more. Guys, please keep it simple. I don't have to say much.
Hey guys, I basically want to talk about costing, because I feel like we've heard like quite a lot about it in a well, just in this general like election campaign really, and sort of my position on them. I sort of think to quote Emily Thornberry, I think they're bollocks. That's basically for two reasons. Firstly, I sort of agree with former Shadow Chancellor Ken Clark on this, that by sort of explicitly naming every single place you're going to get your costings for the next 5 years from, it restricts the ability of the Chancellor to react to new political situations. And obviously things won't remain completely constant over the course of 5 years. Secondly is that what's actually in the manifesto, the numbers in the manifestos can sometimes just be like utter tosh, basically. Like complete bollocks. Like for example, in the Labour manifesto, there's about 10 billion total that comes from it's tax loopholes. This is something like sort of both parties said we're going to get more money from closing tax loopholes in 2015. And back then the IFS briefed against both parties. Basically, it's utter bollocks. There's no way that you can ever predict how much money there is still left, and so it's just sort of irresponsible to dedicate that sort of imaginary funding to government projects. You're just going to run out of money, basically. So then, if costings are if they're sort of against national interest in restricting the Chancellor's potential to react to situations, and they're full of bollocks, do I think they're relevant? No, not really. Because I very crucially, I think what's in the costings could tell you a lot about the people who've written it. Like the sort of person who can come up with these numbers and then relay them to the British people as if they're absolutely true. What does that say about their relationship with the British public? So before we go to the polls on the 8th of June, I would like you to please very carefully consider what the mainstream parties want you to think after they've shown their costings, even if those costings are, as I said earlier, bollocks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A reminder, guys, we've not been getting any questions for the last half an hour or so on the Google form. If you'd like to ask questions and you want these guys to answer, please submit them on that so that we can see them. So that's another way of staying engaged. Please don't forget. Before that, we've got time for two more floor speeches. Would anyone else would like to give a floor speech? I've got interest here, and I've got interest there. So you two will be next. So Sean, if you want to go first.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a little supporter. I'm going to talk about like a term education. So like there's this like very popular narrative about like a leadership economics So we need conservatives to come and say some kind of economic just a few last stats on that. Under like the last Labour government, we had 63 consecutive growth. That's the longest bit of growth we've had in recent years. We also had like under conservatives, we had the slowest economic growth, slowest economic recovery from recession we've had since the 1950s. That's like real wage growth for citizens on like -10%, which is the joint lowest in the entire EU, joint lowest in Greece. So like the real wage of lower income earners in Britain is growing at the same rate it is in Greece. Okay, also this idea about like how 26% corporate tax is like it's really high now and not so much. Well, like a few years ago, it used to be 28%. 26% is actually pretty average. America's like 55, 56%. Reducing it to 17% like the Conservatives want brings us to like one of the lowest rates of corporate tax in the developed world. What they're trying to do is turn the UK into a tax haven to undercut the EU. In terms of like how it's raised innovations as well, it's like if they want to like have an amenable if they want to have an amenable Brexit negotiation with the EU, they have to try to undercut them every turn, means that they will actually give us some kind of better package as well, what they was trying to offer. Also, one that's not really been discussed that much has been like issue of education. So, like, the kind of cuts that are going on underhand in education at the moment is like absolutely revolting. My mom's a teacher, and I'm from Wales, so mostly like the Aston State class, because I was in Wales. But still, like a lot of funding is taken to my facilities. In next year alone, my high school is going to use 16 teachers because of efficiency savings. They're making all heads of art departments in my school redundant. Which also affects my mum, by the way, but sorry. Is that what one of that? Yeah, so like we actually huge assessments. Anything on in the NHS, it's kind of ideological efficiency savings. This privatisation of parts of the NHS, which actually end up costing 5 times as much units like cancer tests, because about 5 times as much under the private operator under the state. What Labour is proposing actually need to sort out the economy in this country to make it more efficient, to make it run by the state and not pay as private outsourcers who are trying to rip off the taxpayer.
Thank you very much. I've got the next speaker.
There. Hi guys. So I'm a foreign student. I'm from, so I can't vote in the election. But I thought it would be important to raise an issue that I feel hasn't been discussed enough, and that's environment conservation. And I don't know who you're going to support or who you're going to vote in the election, but you have to think that climate change is a big issue, conservation is a big issue, and this hasn't been voiced enough today. And you have to think which candidate is going to try and undo work that has been done both in legislative and in political terms over the past year. So not just the 2004 Hunting Act, but also the nature directive from the EU, and that's not just about the UK conservation side, but if the UK pulls out of this directive, I assume some of you will know about that's going to affect Europe as a whole. So it's not just about the UK being alone, the UK standing on their own. It's about how they're going to affect the rest of Europe by leaving. And yeah, just consider that as a very big issue when you decide, because the environment is there and climate change is there, and it is a big threat, and it needs, you know, to be contemplated apart from economics and other social issues. So, yeah.
We might actually have time for one more speech if there's interest. Does anyone else want to give a floor speech in this debate? Yes. Wherever you're comfortable with. can people see matters?
I was going to do and I think I'm possibly the only Scouse disabled Tory that has ever existed, so we're not often responsible to that. Basically, I think that the notion that disabled people should somehow automatically be shielded from any sort of public economizations merely reinforces the ideology that non-disabled people should pity disabled people, like the patting on the head. Don't worry, you don't have to face any kind of hard time. And what that does is it sort of strips us away from our citizenship, and that's very, very harmful and insidious, because by doing that, you're gauging on the humanization. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Probably be the last one. You could get a couple of times, so.
I want to address the idea that the Lib Dems don't have a shot, basically. I kind of want to say that I don't think that matters right now. It's that we are faced with two really, really bad choices. I don't even know how to put it quite so badly. We have Theresa May, who's got all this really appealing stuff on the surface about how we're going to do exactly what the British people said on Brexit, but she doesn't actually mean anything that she says. I think that's really clear. She voted Remain, and now she's perfectly happy to pursue the kind of Brexit that not just people in the Conservative camp wanted, but people over in the UKIP camp that were arguing for. Not like a Norwegian model, not a Swiss model, not even a let's trade more with the Commonwealth model, but just this kind of cut immigration and sort out everything else later kind of thing. She did the same thing on the dementia tax. She came up with this policy, and whether or not you agree with it, she's gone back on that completely by saying that she's going to introduce a cap, which goes completely against the ideology of that. She's done the same thing on whether or not she's going to call a referendum, call a general election, and she's gone back on her word on that, all that as well. You can't trust whatever's in the Tory manifesto. For one, there is nothing in there. It's just a bunch of meaningless platitudes, and in a couple of places incredibly contradictory, especially the stuff about how they want to maintain the soft Northern Irish border, but also don't want free movement with the EU. I don't know how you do that unless you maintain a strong border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland and the rest of the EU. She says a bunch of ridiculous things, and she's trying to convince people that she can promise and make all these promises. And the way she's doing that is running away from cameras whenever they're thrown at her, trying to hide from any kind of public scrutiny. And then we get a Labour Party that, in terms of the biggest issues like Brexit, they're perfectly happy to just let her do what she wants. They want to back they want to back her ideas about how we can't have freedom of movement and all that kind of stuff. And they don't really seem to take a particularly hard stance on any of that. And also, they want to do all kinds of ridiculous stuff on nationalising literally everything. And they don't cost their plans in the sense that we don't know where the tax money is coming from. If it's just going to be phenomenal amounts of borrowing. And there doesn't seem to be any practical reason for any of this nationalisation either. It's not we're going to nationalise the trains so we can run them fantastically, so we can invest more in them. It's just we want to own them because people like that. I don't know. So both of those seem like really, really bad options to me. So I don't think it matters if the Lib Dems can't win a majority. I just think it matters that you don't have to vote for two really, really terrible options. You can vote for a party that actually thinks about policy and doesn't pander towards populists and hides from cameras whenever they're put in front of them. You can vote for someone who actually wants evidence-based policy and reasonable discussions and don't want to pander to xenophobes or Marxists. So yeah, I think that's it.
Everyone that got on the debate, unfortunately, I think we do have to move on now. But if anyone else wants to say comments, please submit the question form in the debate. Now I'm going to go to each of the panelists for 2 minutes of response to what we've heard before we move on to the areas that we're going to discuss. That include education, that include the environment. So hopefully that will also engage with some of the things you guys are talking about. Should we go in reverse order to the opening statement? So,
I'm unfamiliar with this format, so there was a heck of a lot of stuff. Should I stand up or sit?
whatever you're comfortable with.
What were you guys doing?
You're wasting
Stand
time.
up,
You're
yes,
on
okay,
top.
fine. Very quickly, I suppose. Yeah, we're in favour. Okay, yeah. First question was about then we'll go to taking my taxes away. Look, we're a party that both supports those who are striving and those who are struggling. Yeah. So what we're simply going to say is we do set a tax rate there at a reasonable level, so that we can pay for things like the roads, like university or these subsidised universities, for things like school education. These are really key things that the government covers. They're pretty important. So that's tax in general is pretty useful. But let's not be overzealous, because that can encourage people to do all sorts of terrible things. And also be inventive as to how we do taxation, like messing up with having a revolution in business rates and so on and so forth. With things like immigration, completely agree. It's a boom to our economy. There's not really that much more to be said. It is an economic necessity. I wholeheartedly agree. And just speaking to my Singaporean friend there, Neo, I love your question. You were right when you started off your question. I don't know much about British politics. You're completely right there. What I'd say is this: listen, you've got two stark choices. The Dems aren't going to win in every constituency, but you've got a choice. This is a democracy. You can vote. Make your vote count. Send a message to Westminster. Tell them maybe the Lib Dems have a horse. Maybe having a hard Brexit isn't what you want. Show an increased vote share, because they will listen. That's the point of democracy, guys. So don't just feel like you're foisted by these two stark choices. Make a real choice. Do what you believe in. You might not believe in the Lib Dems, fine, but I think a heck of a lot of you might do. Thanks.
Right, so I remember praising something about immigration. Like I said before, I think immigration is a good thing. I think we should have it. The point though about the fact that we don't train enough doctors and nurses, and so we have to have immigration to make sure we have enough people to staff our health service. I personally think that we should be able to train enough doctors and nurses, and ultimately that does require actually spending some money and investing in the people that actually live here. So I think that's just something that we should be doing generally. To the Singaporean guy, do I want to have a strong environment system? That I'm partisan in terms of I want Labour to win. I want you to support and vote for Labour. But in the event that the Tories are the ones leading the Brexit conditions, I'm obviously going to want them to have a strong environment position generally anyway. We're not going to be that petty. So, they'll be the ones if they win. They'll be the ones to be sort of arguing for Britain in these negotiations. Labour's costings are brought up, kind of the bollocks. I think that they're not. I think that actually there's also obviously going to be some calculations that you make that are going to be a bit up in the air, and not too, because they're a bit easy to it. I think that's just part of it. And ultimately, I guess we can. It's ambitious, but some of our figures can actually meet what we say they're going to do. The Labour supporter, speaking about education and NHS, this is a big thing that we have been, and this always happens, is that every time you have a period of time where the Tories are in power, the NHS and the education system is run down, and then Labour has to come back in and fix it. Yeah, I'm saying don't let them do it for another 5 years, because they're going to ruin it completely. With the question about disabilities, yes, I don't think we should be patronising to people with disabilities. I do think that we have to recognise that some people do face great hardships in life. I think it's okay if we address that. And then Lib Dem woman, question about Labour. To be honest, guys, Lib Dems are not an option selection. It's the two-party election between Labour and Tories. Let's not try and pretend it isn't.
That's fine.
You're on 9%. You're going to lose seats.
I feel like we've got a classification between these two. Do you guys want to carry this on a little bit, like on the side? Right. To take.
Well, firstly, I would say, concerning immigration, yes, immigration is very much a necessity. However, we have to acknowledge that there are issues. and those need to be addressed. Also, again, the democratic principle that the majority in this country want a reduction in immigration. The government simply cannot ignore it year on year. No, that has to be dealt with. And the parties on my left clearly don't actually want to carry that out. They just want to continue in the path that is going on now. Secondly, concerning our manifesto. Our manifesto is not proposing any ludicrous figures. No, because clearly those ultimately won't work in the way that Labour has worked. We have to be realistic, and we have to say what we intend to do in government, not just come up with promises that will not come to fruition. Concerning the ad hominem attack against my, what I thought was rather nice paper, and also my, anyway, I don't know whether it would help if I repeated my arguments in some time. I don't know whether that would somehow make my arguments better. I don't know whether that would convince you more. I don't see the merit in what you're saying. Just because I dress in a particular way, just because I behave in a particular way, that is my choice, that is my liberty, that is my feeling. But if you like, I can take you out on So please listen to my arguments and don't just be entranced by my brilliant.
We're now going to move on to the last couple of areas. We're going to talk about education, we're going to talk about healthcare, and the environment and housing. So quite a few little bits to get through, so hopefully people will keep things brief and to the point. What's happening up there? Let's move on to education and come back talking about tech. Labour committed to what it terms as a national education service. This is what they call free at the point of use for all, including those who are much older, who have benefited from other education services over the years, including those that got their university education for free back in the day. Part of this proposal is scrapping tuition fees, and this would shift the burden of funding tertiary education from those who benefit from it to the general public, i.e. those who, not like it's currently on those who opt into it, it's now going to go on to everyone. Is this truly the fairest way to fund our universities? And is there not a massive risk that this burden on the public will be too great if education remains free whenever individuals want to access it?
Labour likes to aim big, likes to be ambitious. We didn't shy away from these sorts of challenges in 1945 when we gave you NHS and the welfare state, and we're not going to do it now. Education as of itself is a moral good, as well as good for the economy and its population. I think that reducing barriers to education is a great thing. Personally, I think that actually living costs and grants are bigger, from my perspective, a bigger focus than tuition fees. I do also think that removing tuition fees.
Well, on that particular issue, if it's about sustainable access to education and reducing barriers, I think, if they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the other two parties have committed to improving, and along with Labour, improving and helping people with things like maintenance grants and living costs. But is it the most sustainable way to fund education the way that you're saying, which is it's free at the point of use whenever you want to access education with no tuition fees, as opposed to the current system of placing the burden on the people that opt into it? Is that not a more sustainable way of making sure that people who benefit from education sustain that system?
I think it's a part of it's a question of necessity as well, though. The thing is that we're living in a time where jobs are not for life anymore, where people are often having to retrain. People are often stopped from being able to retrain in the middle of their life because they can't afford the costs associated with going to university or retraining in any course. And I think that to have a sort of a well-trained, educated workforce that's able to respond to these sort of changes in the jobs market is needed. I don't think that these other two parties' plans are going to achieve that. I think that we need to be bold and ambitious, and the likelihood is that in 30 years' time, the country will thank us for it, which is something that none of the other two have. Instead of the NHS, we'll do it with education.
So, education is a public good that requires that kind of funding the same kind of way we do to healthcare? Right.
Well, we'll put it really simply, just in terms of policies, there are certain policies that make a big difference to someone's education. We brought in pupil premiums, for example, we have a track record on that. That's about, I think it's £1,320 for people of primary age, like about 900 and something for kids of secondary school age, £300. If you're early years, we'll whip that up to £1,000. When we're talking about things like underrepresentation of kids from disadvantaged backgrounds, this is from The Guardian, right? So this is nice stuff in paper. There's been an increase of kids applying for disadvantaged backgrounds between 2006 and 2015, 72%. And then the Tories took away maintenance grants, and the stats went down. So we're pretty clear on that. We want to reintroduce maintenance grants and bursaries. We're also introducing nursing bursaries. I've met student nurses who've been completely screwed over by the fact that they don't have nursing bursaries. That completely kills the prospect of having new nurses in our NHS, and that's a really big issue. I don't really need to explain that. And then we've got other things like what we'll make sure that local authorities and academy change are actually inspected by Ofsted, and Ofsted doesn't have full coverage of those cases. We'll also ensure
so these are all great policies to alleviating other Asian areas across development difficulties for people getting into education, so reducing barriers to everything. But what about going all the way as Labour, which is getting rid of tuition fees and also making education considered in the same light that we consider health, for example, free to put in use whenever they want to? Why not make it that kind of stuff?
Well, here's a big difference. Here's a big difference. Everyone in this room, almost everyone in this room, will make use of the NHS at some point. We're going to fall ill at some point. We're going to need a checkup. Whatever. We're going to use it. Everyone does. Half the country goes to university, the other half doesn't. If you introduce a £0, 0 tuition fee, you're asking those who haven't gone to university to pay up. And by the way, this isn't a small cost. This is a fifth of, according to Labour's 40 costings, a fifth of their expenditure, 11.2 billion. That's their own statistics. That's not student finance.
Includes maintenance grants.
It might include maintenance grants, but the vast majority comes from loans. Okay? Or the omissions of loans. Okay? All we're saying is a £9,000 a year tuition fee loan. That's really a graduate tax. We're not saying the 9,250 the Tories proposal, keeping it as it is and subjecting it to review in the future. But what we're saying is 9,000 as a graduate tax. What does that mean? Now, listen, most of us here will be on a £9,000 tuition fee loan. I am. What it means is, if you earn anything under 21k, you don't pay a penny. And then beyond that, anything you earn over 21k, you pay 9%, which is small, frankly, in comparison.
I think everyone here is fairly familiar with
exactly. So it's just a graduate tax. So all we're asking, sorry, one sec. All we're asking,
so we got
all we're asking is graduates paying for the education they have. Otherwise, we have middle class subject. Yeah.
Right.
Well, the idea that previous generations have had free tuition, we have that now. No. I'm just more versed in reality. And the idea is that back when our parents, 5% of the population went into university. 95% paid for 5%. Nowadays, it's over 40%. It is unrealistic to suggest that we can still maintain the same amount of funding for universities when so many people are going to university. And not only that, if so many people beginning to go into university as just a route which instead of going to work, you just get a degree and then see what happens. Delay your employment by, I don't know, 3 years. That devalues your degree. If everyone has a degree, then your degree is worth less. Think now that when all of us graduate, you're going to be compared with thousands of people who have degrees. Degrees from rubbish universities like King.
You playing to the crowd, but so why is that impact a more important factor than hearing which is there are people who don't feel they can afford university, even if it's under the system?
So the principle is that having gone to university average wage in jobs such as being a doctor or being a lawyer or whatever, which would therefore pay these large sums of money, and then you pay back for your right to have an education. And actually, it's a tax, which I think the Labour should support, because it's taxing the wealthy. It's taxing those who come out of university, who will be earning the most, and then pay back to university. Why should the poor in society don't necessarily want to go to university? You don't necessarily need to go to university, as so many jobs are. Why should they be paying for, say, someone who's quite wealthy, doesn't know what to do, and just goes to like a free delay their property home and when they get a job?
So the same challenge is coming from both Raeed. Why is it that we change the burden of this from being on individuals who opt into the system and placing it on everybody? Why is that a better, fairer way of doing it?
It's not like they're not going to pay for it eventually. Most people that go to university, pretty much everyone earns after university above average income. They end up paying back. But the principle is that when I need help, I'm on hard times, you help me, and then when you need help, I help you. Not when I need help, you'll slap me in a nice high debt. But when it comes to I'm benefiting from that education, I'm still getting slapped on with higher. Tax rates. It's principles of like social contract and society, and it's this idea that that someone going to university is isolated. Them going and getting an education benefits everyone. The people that you talk about that they're paying for their education, they're still going to benefit in a holistic way.
So I guess there's a question here: is a difference of
And
ideology?
let's keep in mind, by the way, that all through history, at some point out there, a level of education has come into basic public funding. Not everyone used to go to secondary school, not everyone used to go to college, and it depends on need. And as we're progressing, we need now for the population to be more to be educated, and more often not at university level.
So not every job requires a degree.
No, lots of them. Like so many do. And also in terms of basically devaluing degrees, we're not saying that everyone gets to go to university if they want to. All universities should have obviously entry requirements because you have to be unsustainable.
Well, I think the back and forth this has become a bit clearer. Highlights slightly different area of education policy. You can even comment on this if you wish on that. And this is about grammar schools, which has obviously been in the news quite a lot lately. The Conservatives have committed to removing the ban on selective schools, such as grammar schools, and have pledged to build new ones. There are many criticisms that schools like this do little to improve attainment, but have significant negative impacts on other schools in the community. Is it really more meritocratic to have hierarchize education this way from the age of 11? Is that really the route that we should be taking to improve our school system?
There certainly has to be a point where those who are not able to go to the better school or in the areas where there are the best schools, due to housing or private schools, and there is an opportunity to go to a good selective school where they can be, where they can flourish under the conditions with peers. It's the same principle with university. You go to a good university where you're able to achieve more being surrounded with like-minded people.
Sure, but these people are being stratified at the age of 11. Is that really a conducive environment for their education?
But
is that really meritocratic?
We also have to say that if you leave it too late, you will inevitably have people whose talent you are missing out on. People whose talent will never be nourished and will never be able to achieve what they need to achieve. The later you leave it, the more likely that is able to happen. So I would always, 11 plus exams have been working quite well actually for the past 100 years. Oh dear, I've said something to offend someone. Not the first time, I don't think. But I would also note and comment that we probably, that many people here, despite
Right.
Yeah, okay. I think both guys here are making a point. So first things first, I'll deal with why. On this particular matter, there seems to be this idea that there's some sort of meritocracy in being rich enough to do these things, to do whatever it is in education that you want to do. Yeah, that's completely wrong. With regard to grammar schools, it's well known that if you are wealthy enough to hire a private tutor and have other such advantages forced upon you by virtue of your wealth, you're more likely to get into a grammar school. That's not meritocratic. I don't need to tell you guys that. Yeah, so simple as that. Simple as that. And with regard to tuition fees, I mean, I don't know. You don't pause. I will defend it, and I will defend it, obviously. But I will defend it the way Ryan's defended it. Ryan's defended it on the idea that if you are able to do it, you can go there and strive and blah, 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 so that you get a high-paying job. Uni is not necessarily there for a high-paying job. You may well choose to do a degree that doesn't end up in a high-paying job. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and it's not necessarily if you're wealthy enough to go into it. It's about whether or not you're good enough to get into UCL or wherever it is that you want to get into. So the tuition fee system, which by the way Labour didn't have, is that at £21,000, if you're earning less than 21k, you don't pay. Simple as that, right? That's fair. That's a graduate tax. It only taxes the wealthiest. It's progressive. Labour should frankly support it. Now, going back to these grammar schools, we made it pretty clear we don't support it, neither does Labour, and neither do a hell of a lot of Tories, funnily enough. They are meritocratic. We do need to have some degree of testing. We do need to ensure that kids get the best chance in life, but listen, grammar schools are not the answer. Let's move into the 21st century.
The current system we've got with the tuition fees, where you pay 9% over 21 grand when you graduate. But the stats have been showing that this doesn't actually benefit us more than the previous system. Actually, what happens is that you, as a government, you end up taking in less money because the threshold's too high. At some point, they're going to have to lower that threshold if they're going to want to start making some of the money back that they've made. So I don't agree with the £9,000 fee at all. They should have stuck to inflation first time around. In terms of primary schools, comprehensives are selective. I went to comprehensive, and you have within a school, people broke up into higher sets, middle sets, lower sets. The difference with grammar schools is what it does, it takes away all the best people and puts them in one place, and then gives them a higher per capita funding than everyone else. And then everyone else gets stuck in this small school and not given the funding that they deserve. You're helping off these people that manage to pass tests at age 11. You're fucking over everyone else. It's an outdated policy that should never come back, and it's ridiculous that you bring it back now.
Okay, so last comments on this education section.
Right. Yes, so there's also sets in I would say we have to give everybody an equal opportunity to go to a school where they will be able to get the most out of their education. And grammar schools offer this opportunity.
If you can chooses and the other.
Not everyone who goes to grammar school.
Not necessarily, but it's often the case, right? That's the issue.
Okay, no, what is it about grammar schools that makes them inherently better than comprehensive? What is it about them that makes them inherently better?
Because you are surrounded by equal people or equally people who want to learn and want to do well.
The issue is 11 is not necessarily the age at which you can differentiate.
What is the age?
I'm going to give you an answer.
Well, no, sorry, the last question on this that I would like to ask is one that we haven't touched on education, related to grammar schools, which is the idea that if you're a teacher, you might often prefer to work in a grammar school comprehensive, either because of perception or the reality that you're going to find an easier workplace environment there. Is it fair to pull resources in terms of the quality of the teachers that are through to your grammar schools, if that means that some people are unfortunately left behind because they didn't pass the test at the age of 11?
Also, then, we would really point out at the age of 16, there are also more opportunities to play again at entrance exam. And also, even at the age of 30, they have a similar system. So it's not just if you don't achieve at 11, that's it around. No, it's 11, 13, 16, 18. And even if they're now prep schools as well, which is something I love. But it's not like finite. If you don't achieve by the age of 11, then you're out. No, that's not the case. That's the plan. And in terms of pulling money from other schools, that doesn't actually happen. It's more important that everyone gets an equal opportunity to do well, and that's something which grammar schools offers, and which comprehensive don't. They just pull everyone together and expect everything to work out fine. It's just a
all right.
support.
All right, on. Just gonna have a last couple of questions then. I think one on the environment that I'd like to open up to everyone, and then an individual question on trust and leadership for each party. The environment one is quite similar, quite simple. Undoubtedly, one of the major long-term challenges this country faces is meeting growing energy needs without diminishing the impacts on the environment. To that end, the Conservatives are the only major party to back fracking as an affordable source of energy in the short term. But there are lots of criticisms about that creating huge negative impacts that affect the country in the long term. I'm going to start with Raeed this time and come back over here. Should we be prioritizing filling that gap with, like in the short term, of energy needs with sources like fracking until we find better sources? Or is that not what
No. Yeah, we have most fracking. We believe that we can get a good source of environmentally friendly energy through a variety of sources. So we do, on the controversial side, perhaps, think, accept new nuclear power stations can play a role, but we would regulate them such that they don't provide problems to do with cost and disposal of waste and other safety issues. We'd also be very keen on encouraging the expansion of our renewable energy outlook. We have an aim that by 2030, we will generate 60% of our electricity from renewables. We will restore government support for solar panels, as well as
so no to
wind.
fracking.
So no to fracking, but yeah, to a heck of a lot of other.
Yes, to nuclear.
Yes, and we'll stay, you know what, because we're not going to go for a hard Brexit, we'll stay within Euratom. And that ensures that we have continued nuclear cooperation, research funding, and access to nuclear.
Right.
There is again this idea that there is unlimited amount of money, and you can pay for renewable energy, and somehow this can be achieved under the current budget, current income of government. That is simply a lie. We have to explore all areas in order to keep energy costs low for those at the bottom of society. You cannot have all renewable energy, which would then lead to an increase in the cost of electricity. And that would result in very depressing situation, a very depressing situation for the poorest in society who cannot afford it. So I would say that the reason that the Conservatives back fracking is because we are aware that it is a necessity to expand all our
And the risks that come with it are, for example, like massive increases in the risk of things like earthquakes, losing groundwater in those areas. These are long-term effects that always hit the poorest.
Well, I mean, these are very isolated incidents. And
I'm sorry, just take this. The evidence on that is quite the other way. For example, states in America that do allow fracking have seen a massive increase in the number of earthquakes per day, as opposed like they would have the amount of earthquakes they have in a year in just one day, and affecting the water supply. These are proven. Is it not worth rejecting this form of energy, or is getting cheap energy worth any environmental short-term harms?
I don't think that you can always just do an idealistic idea. You know, we're going to have all renewable energy regardless of the cost, and it's all going to be cheap. But that's not going to happen. We have to be aware that we have to see other routes. And when it comes to fracking, it is being researched thoroughly, and it is not just a rash decision to go to fracking. It is thought out, a well-thought out.
All right.
We
Okay.
enable, but it's both economically sound and also eventually long term.
Okay, we're going to move on to one final question that I'm just going to address to each representative, and then after that, we're going to go to the borough TCR. There's a lot of alcohol down here as well, if you guys want to grab some of that before we finish. Yeah, well, we might do. Yeah, so one question for each party. I think we're going to start with the Liberal Democrats on this, and we haven't really gone through it, but what's come up is you are not going to win a majority in this election, and the campaign that has been run by Tim Farron is for them to, at best, become the opposition. Couple that with a lack of trust that people may have in the party as a result of major U-turns on major front policies like tuition fees. Why should people vote for a party that they're not sure they can trust, and also is not going to be enough? What is the use of throwing it in some sort of message to us?
Well, I suppose on the matter of trust, which seems to be the thrust of your question, the key thing is politics is politics, and the Lib Dems have been in certain situations which haven't been that favourable, to put it euphemistically. Yeah, the Tories, by the way, have done stuff like not pursue the immigration targets properly, argument that perhaps they're people who you might not trust. Labour did also increase tuition fees against what they had promised. Again, you might not trust them, especially given their rather too ambitious manifesto, you might not trust them either there because they can't pay for it. So look, political parties break promises sometimes, that's the truth. But you know what? We have the courage to say sorry when we're wrong. And we did. We did. When we've gotten something wrong, we say sorry. We try to make amends. We make a policy on tuition fees that says there is that threshold of 21K and things like that. We make amends as best we can. As best we can as junior partners in the coalition. Let's not forget, in that coalition, we were the junior partner. We had two key policies: pupil premiums. We were giving over 1,000 quid to the lowest income primary school kids. Or we had this middle class subsidy, frankly, which was the lack of tuition fees. So we chose, I think, the right option. And it was hard, but it was the right option. So that's why you should trust us. And now I'm going to make a closing speech with this point on. The Liberal Democrats are the only party which offers a set of policies that will make your life better. We're not populists. We're not interested in making policies to appease some focus group. We make policy that makes sense. And unlike Labour and the Tories, we simply won't waver from our principles. We'll back up what we say with action. And if, because the world of politics can be brutal, we make a mistake, we'll apologise and we'll do our best to soften the blow. The two traditional parties are obsessed with power for the sake of power and will waver and flip-flop as the newspapers dictate. Now listen, we have always stood for civil liberties. We've always stood for a strong relationship with the EU. We've always stood up for you, whether you're struggling or you're striving. So when you're faced with the ballot box on the 8th of June, think hard about what you want for yourself and for your country.
But on this, you didn't answer the last part of the question, which is, if you're not voting against government, why vote for them?
It's democracy. Have an opposition, a real opposition that says we're going to stay in a single market. Yeah, have a real opposition that will do more for the poor than Labour does. You want a real opposition, don't you? That's what democracy is all about. Okay, so think hard about what you want for yourself in your country. Do you want a party that pays lip service to self-interested and politically extreme minorities? Or do you want to vote for a party in opposition that prides itself on creating and delivering policy that's advocated by experts for people like you, the reasonable majority, because you're the real experts on the future that you deserve. Okay?
Thank you very much, Dave. What we've got from May so far, very few sort of explanations as to what she thinks Brexit or post-Brexit look like, kind of giving herself, looks like, a blank check to provide any kind of deal that she wants on that issue. She has gone back on a lot of her promises that she's made previously, for example, her position on Brexit, her position on a variety of other issues, that she now says that she's changed her mind on, and there seems to be, even amongst the policies that have been announced in the manifesto, walkbacks and U-turns that she's trying to say are U-turns. So again, why should people trust a party or that's led by a person who seems to have completely changed what they believe? And what guarantees do we have that the Conservative Party is going to continue to do what it says it's going to do, rather than pandering to an increasingly extreme right-wing base that it feels is the only group of people that it needs to target its policies to?
I think the Conservatives understand that you cannot just always make a promise and be unwavering even when circumstances change. Be flexible and realise that at times a government needs to understand that position and then adapt in order to result with the best outcome for the country. And I think the Conservatives do that, and they do it very well. Also, there have been not so much changes, but rather clarification with parts of the manifesto. And that's always very important to ensure that the right policy is taken up and is achieved. So I would say that the reason why the Conservatives are always the best option is because we actually understand how government works. Labour has no idea what's going on. They promise things rashly, they spend money as though they were immaterial. This is not the case. Labour there's an infinite supply of money for Labour. Because they either borrow it or say someone else will. In fact, no, the policy of Labour is someone else will pay for it. Constantly, either in other countries or it will be, the rich who will pay for it. Or, this fantastical idea of a small sector of society who's going to pay for everything. And therefore we can do anything. This is untrue. It is an immature policy again, to essentially say we can pay for everything and it's going to be fine. No, the Conservatives actually have a true understanding. I won't waste much breath on this, but I will say that they again, they have the same idea that they're pandering to the majority. They're attempting to essentially win the votes of people with ridiculous statements like, "Oh, immigration is great." Well, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. And I think it's unreasonable for the Lib Dems to just continually make statements with no actual substance, but with purely the idea that they're going to encourage people to vote for them.
Cool. Round of applause. Final question before we finally leave this room, and that's you, Dan. We've got in the Labour Party a shadow cabinet of individuals in front of the bench who don't even agree amongst themselves on a lot of issues. We've had people like the Chief Whip refusing to vote in line with the way Corbyn has told them to vote, and that's meant to be the people who are there to enforce the votes that he wants to get out. We've had people in the shadow cabinet who have basically no front bench politics experience because they've always been at the back benches, and that's become apparent in the interviews that they've done with their lack of grasp of the figures, the lack of grasp of how to explain or to even explain what their own policy is to the people they're trying to convince to vote for them. And we've also got in this cabinet, or shadow cabinet, I should say, individuals who've made statements that a vast majority of people in the UK find questionable, such as their support in the past for groups like the IRA and other such comments. So, again, on the issue of trust, how does the British people trust a group of people who were now in power within Labour, who previously never had much political sway, who've never had much influence, who are at the front bench of politics right now, who are holding views that a large majority of people find questionable? What trust do people have in that group of inexperienced leaders in Labour?
So I think you have to keep in mind that if taking Corbyn, for instance, that throughout his political career, he has consistently and unwaveringly stepped up for the work of basically the majority of people. He's always had those interests at heart. The very reason why he hasn't been in the government at this point is because he doesn't basically play by the rules. He will put you first. He won't play by the lines. There's a lot. Even though the sort of current shadow cabinet isn't particularly experienced in terms of government, there's still that wealth of experience in the PLP. Obviously, everyone knows that Labour has not always been the most harmonious of parties recently, but what you've seen during this general election is that the whole Labour Party family, from MPs to activists, have all come together, resulting in unity to put this message. Whether people might agree with it or not, it doesn't matter, but they're putting this message forward because this is the program we've got. And what we're seeing is that the public are liking what we're seeing, what we're putting forward. We're down by the polls by about 21%, and now we're behind you by 6%. And we'll see in a week's time just how just where we are. It's going to be very tough. Yeah, well, you're on 9% and going nowhere. So.
And on that note, I'd like to thank all three of our panelists for what I hope you charity. One of which is about this report to person that we think is the best tweeting. But before that, thanks everyone for coming down. I hope this has helped identify the differences between the parties somewhat. I don't really know why I'm plugging it now, but next year, if you guys come back to UCL, every Monday night we have a version of this, which is significantly shorter, but we have the same amount of wine. So you guys should look at the Debate Society. We host interesting discussions all the time. Best tweeter that we thought and the committee this evening was tough. There's some really good tweets out there, but Tarquin Pritchard, I think, had the most consistent tweets. So let's come down. Thanks again for coming. For another round of applause for our panelists. I hope you guys join us at the bar at TCR right now. If anyone would like to support her,
Use your energy, guys.